Hey guys, my name is Sora and welcome back to another video. In this video I will be talking about the topic of social isolation and... See, video's already started and I've already forgotten how to speak. I can see what's ahead without all measured. In this video I'll be talking about the topic of social isolation and making friends when you are socially unusual. So what do I mean by that? By socially unusual I mean someone who maybe has like a disability, mental health issue, or something about you that makes you different from the majority of people, and that might kind of put boundaries on your ability to socialise and interact with other people, and maybe make you feel like you're less than other people and then don't want to be your friend because of that particular issue that you have. So a bit about my background and what inspired me to make this video in the first place is that, as you can probably tell, for most of my childhood I suffered with a speech disorder called selective mutism, and I'll probably make another video about that topic at some point because that's a whole thing on its own. But it basically meant that I didn't really speak up until I was about 19. And yeah, I am a completely different person now. Like, I'm so much like better at like speaking and communicating now than I was maybe only like a couple of years ago. But of course, having suffered with it for so long, it's still something that affects me. It affects, like, it's obviously affected my social skills because like I didn't really like have many or any friends for most of my childhood and teenage years, and it's also affected my actual like physical speech. But now I still have moments where I just like I'm doing it now. Even now I have moments where it's just like, how do I make sounds come out of my mouth and make it make sense? Please. So even just filming this video, it will take me so long just to get like one sentence out. I have to keep saying the same thing over and over because my brain will just go like blank mid-sentence sometimes. So yeah, I recently started university, and because of like the pandemic and everything, all of the classes are online, but I did however decide to move into university accommodation, and so it's like based on previous experiences. Whenever I go into a new environment, like the same thing kind of tends to happen where for the first few days maybe I'll like try and make friends and be social, but eventually like I'll see people like starting to form their groups and stuff, and I'm still just like the one awkward person who's always like sitting by herself and doesn't really know like how to talk to anyone. So eventually I just give up and just like don't have any friends. When I moved into my accommodation, I decided that I was determined to make sure that that didn't happen this time. So I would basically go down to the common room in my accommodation every single night. Maybe I didn't like try and like talk to people every night, but even just being there and around people, I'm much more likely to form connections than if I'm just sitting in my room by myself. See, for the first few months I did struggle quite a lot. Like, even though I was going down to the common room and I was like talking to people and trying to make friends, it just wasn't really working. Like, I could see other people like starting to form their friendship groups and stuff like that, but then I was still like always in that initial awkward phase with people. So it's like I was around people but I just wasn't really making connections with them, and that led me to feeling quite isolated. And so yeah, like even though I was down there and around people almost every single night, I would go up to my room afterwards and I would either feel like exactly the same, like still just as isolated, or even worse because I just wasn't really making those meaningful connections. So yeah, I persevered, and after a traumatic trip to McDonald's at 2 o'clock in the morning, I now think it's safe to say that I do have a pretty good like small group of friends, which I'm really grateful for. I think just like going up to like a group of people that you don't even know and just like trying to like start a conversation, like going down to the common room every night, or in more normal situations people would be going out clubbing and stuff like that. That is like really scary, and it's like not, it may not necessarily be like the best social opportunity for everyone. Even though I was like going down to the common room every night, even though I just like didn't really feel that comfortable to do it, there were probably people who like couldn't even bring themselves to do that, so they were feeling like even more isolated than I was. Probably can't give like much advice to people who are suffering with, you know, these feelings of isolation. Like, I still have moments where I just feel like really isolated and alone. I haven't completely cracked it yet either, but here are just a couple of tips that helped me and maybe might help you a little bit if you're kind of struggling with some of the things. So yeah, I'm wearing my menhera-chan t-shirt today, and yeah, this is one of my favourite t-shirts, and menhera-chan is like a huge comfort character for me when it comes to topics of social isolation. So yeah, I thought it was kind of appropriate. Anyway, back to my tips. I sound like some sort of guru. Tip number 1. No. So the first thing I found is obviously to take social opportunities when they arise. So, you know, sign up to events that are happening, even if they're online. If someone invites you to like go out for a drink or something, definitely say yes. But equally, don't get maybe as obsessive as I probably did. I got to a point where my entire life pretty much revolved around going down to the common room, and it's like I didn't enjoy it. It just made me feel drained and like more isolated than I was feeling initially. But I just sort of like had it in my head that because of my issues I had to work like 10 times harder than anyone else did in order to form friendships, and if I didn't come down to the common room for just like one night, then people would just like forget about me and form all their groups, and I would just find it even more difficult to like infiltrate that. Which is silly. Like, there are always going to be more social opportunities. So yeah, if you need to take time to yourself, or if it's like a situation that you don't feel comfortable with, it's completely okay to turn social opportunities down sometimes. And the second one is, if there are no social opportunities, or if there aren't any that are suited to you, then make them. I know how terrifying that sounds, like if you're someone who is like really shy, or I'm just like terrified of speaking anyway, so just like go up to someone and be like, hey, do you wanna come to my room and play card games? Lol. Yeah, it's not comfortable. But yeah, like one thing I have found is that having some kind of like shared activity, like if you find that you have something in common with that person, like most of the friends that I've made are people who are on like my same course, and I do Japanese, so I'd be like, hey, do you want to like go to like Japan Center or any of like the Japanese stores nearby, kind of thing. And even just like maybe like inviting people over to like play a game or something, that just like, it takes the focus off like it being really awkward and having to think of the next thing to say, because you're all just like focusing on that one activity that you're doing together. So yeah, if all else fails, card games are really great. And the last thing I think is to just be open. And like, okay, before I came to university, I just like had the idea in my head that I was going to become a completely different person. I was going to be like really outgoing and friendly, and I would be the kind of person where if there was someone who was feeling excluded, I would help them to feel more included. And obviously that did not happen. I ended up being the person who was excluded. But you know, I'm trying. So yeah, because I wanted to like completely reinvent myself, I kind of like at first didn't want people to know that like I had these difficulties. There are always going to be people who don't understand, unfortunately. Like even if you don't tell people about your issues, there are going to be people who like misunderstand you. But the right people, as cheesy as that sounds, will be like understanding and will sometimes, you know, like really want to know like what they can do to help you and that sort of stuff. Like all of my, like I've met some people who have been like really, really lovely and just like asked me like how they could make me feel more comfortable in social situations and stuff like that. But equally, like if you don't feel comfortable disclosing that information to anyone and you don't think anything good can come of it, yeah, it is a completely personal choice and you don't have to tell people that, you know, you have those difficulties. But I've only really tended to tell like people that I've, you know, spent a bit of time with and I feel like we're kind of friends now. I don't tend to go up to people and be like, nice to meet you, I have autism. Although I kind of wish that I could do that sometimes because I feel like, you know, at least they know right off the bat that I'm weird and not like wasting anybody's time, you know? So yeah, just be open and reach out. Like if you're really struggling, like please like talk to someone. There's people you can talk to online. If you don't think people will understand, I'm definitely someone who would. Like I feel like I should just like start a club or something. So yeah, social isolation. I've just forgotten how to say this word like every time. Social isolation is, you know, a real issue and is an important topic, and I feel like it's something that people, you know, like feel ashamed of. Like it's shameful to be lonely and not be like this really popular person who has lots of friends, which is silly honestly. And I think like now more than ever, because of the pandemic and a lot of us like not being able to leave the house as much, people are struggling with it even more. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope that it helped you and like gave you some kind of useful information in some way. Please subscribe. Definitely feel free to comment. Leave a comment if, you know, you're struggling with any of these issues, or, you know, you have any tips that might help people. Yeah, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. I can see what's ahead without hope and measured. Moments left sinking down in my thoughts. I will run. I can see what's ahead. Literally just go up to someone and be like, hey, do you want to like go to Japan Center?